It's a little bit chilly out this morning. So I've got the old torpedo heater running out here trying to take the chill off. So if you happen to see me go down from carbon monoxide poisoning, do me a favor and call someone, or at least leave the video running. I need to get my watch hours up, you know? If you watched the last video, you saw me mocking up a few different sets of headlights and a couple different headlight bars on this thing, trying to decide what I wanted to run. So if you didn't watch that video, I'll put a link to it up over in this general vicinity over here, and you can go check that out. I've been tossing it around, looking at some pictures, looking at the video a couple times, and I think I've decided what I want to run. So today, the plan is to put that all together, see what it looks like, make a final decision on it, and then do the final assembly on it. So on a side note, before you all go freaking out on me, yes, I do have the doors open when I run that heater. I don't run it in a closed up garage. I'm aware of how that works. So don't bother with the comments. So anyway, here's the stock headlight setup they had on the car. I think what I want to do is run those commercial housings, which are just the stock Model A lights with painted housing. I think this is the direction I'm going to go with it. This on the dropped bar. The thing is, I have to run the guts out of the stock ones. These are already converted to halogen bulbs a couple of years ago when I got the car. Plus, looking through the lens, I haven't had these apart yet, but it looks like the reflector is kind of crappy. I don't know if you can tell on that, but it's got a dark look to it. Usually that means the finish isn't that great on them. You'll tell better once I get it apart. But I'm going to pull the guts and maybe the trim rings off of these, use these housings, lose the visors, swap my turn signal parking lights over onto the dropped bar. And I'm also thinking that I'm probably going to paint that dropped bar. I don't like the stainless look. It gives it too much of a street roddy kind of look. But I'm going to throw it all together with the unpainted bar first. Just get an idea, maybe do a quick Photoshop, go through and black out the bar and see what it looks like. And I'll put a picture of that in here. But that's the right direction I'm headed with it. So we're going to pull this stuff all apart, do a quick mock-up and just see what it looks like. So if you're not familiar with these, they're pretty easy to take apart. There's just this little bar with a spring on it down here. And it's got a little catch, and you just pull down on it. Fight with it a little bit. That loosens that up, and the trim ring should come off after you monkey with it a little bit, like that. And there's a little hook up on the top there that catches it. These reflectors don't look too bad. Like I said, I already converted them to the halogen bulbs. Plus it's got new seals on them already, so I'm just going to switch everything over into those buckets. We'll pop these off and take a look at what the reflectors look like in these. It actually doesn't look bad, it's just a little dark. That would probably be alright. But these are already cut for the halogen bulbs, so I'm just going to run those. I got this reflector out. I ended up having to cut the ends off of the electrical connections. They were just, hardware store basic ends anyway. Wasn't really a big deal. And I want to put the original style bullet ends that you solder on. Or originally they were crimped, but I'm going to solder them back on. So it looks a little more correct with those ends on. So that's what I'll be doing when I put it back together. When you get this out, you notice it's got this little rubber seal on here. You want to make sure that's either good. I think they were originally cork, but the rubber one seems to work better. So if you're missing that, obviously replace that before you put it back together. That seals against the glass to keep the water and stuff out. The other thing with this is the original focusing screw obviously isn't used with the halogen setup. So I just put it back in, put a nut on it to hold it in place so it looks correct and there's not a big hole in the back of the bucket. So these reflectors have two little tabs that hold them in. Right here, and right there on the other side. There's little flat spots where those hooks hook into right there. So what I usually do is I'll just bend one of them down, slide the reflector in, get it in place, take a little punch, and bend the other one down like that with a hammer. And that'll hold them in there so it's easier to reassemble it. They won't be falling out. So I've got the other commercial housing disassembled. I noticed these little clips are missing out of that. Now these go in the trim ring obviously, but they retain the lens into the trim ring so that when you take it apart, they don't just all fall out like this one. You can see it holds the lens right in here so it comes apart as a unit. I had this other trim ring laying around. I'm going to steal the clips out of this and get that other bucket all reassembled. This is the reflector out of the other commercial light. You can see how tarnished it is, how rough that finish is, so it won't reflect really well. You also notice this reflector is different than the one that was in the other commercial light, where this doesn't have the second socket in it. So this would have been for a deluxe car that had the cowl lights, because that cowl light kind of offset your other parking light that was in here. The other reflector out of the other commercial light had that light, so it would have been probably a standard car that had your parking light inside your headlight and no cowl lights. Now, in case anyone's wondering, I wanted to talk about the parking lights that I've got. These I got off of eBay. They're just Chinese-made crap. They're nothing special. Pretty sure these actually came from Europe. I couldn't find anything domestic that had the look that I wanted. Usually they've got a darker amber lens. I like the lighter yellow. It makes it look kind of old. What I ended up doing with these, I believe these are made for scooters and like Libretta scooters. I'm pretty sure that's what the listing said. These had a 12-volt halogen bulb in them. Obviously the car is still 6-volt. I ended up cutting that socket out and putting in a regular, I think it's an 1157 style socket in this. When I did that, the housing wouldn't allow for that socket. These were flat on the back, so I had to work this with just a ball peen hammer just to kind of bulge the back of it so the socket would fit in there. So that's what I'm running now. It's a 6-volt version of an 1157 bulb. I don't know what the actual number is. Like I said, I had to modify the housing. The lights are actually upside down. They're supposed to be mounted with a mounting bracket on the bottom. So the wire does come out of the top, which it is what it is. I mean, it's not a huge deal. When I do the final installation, I'll just put a little sealant around it and it should be fine. What I use to attach it is these are just the license plate brackets that you can get from any Model A supplier. I've actually got the license plate attached to the bar with these, but they work fine. They clamp right around the bar. They've held these just fine. I like the look of these. That's why I went this route. It's a little bit of work to get them to work. So I'm going to pull these off, hang them on the dropped bar, and see what that looks like. Well, here's the mock-up commercial lights, dropped bar, and the old turn signal parking lights that I had on it. I like this. I think this is going to work. As long as I keep it 6-volt, I'll probably stick with this. If I decide maybe these lights aren't bright enough or decide I don't like them, I might go to the 12-volt, go to the guide style ones. But for right now, I like this and I think this will work. Plus, it'll cost me less money to get it together on the road. I'm pretty happy with how those commercial lights and those turn signals look. I'm still not sold on that headlight bar. The stainless, I don't know. So I'm going to take some pictures from a few different angles. I'm going to go in and photo chop them. Do the same picture in stainless and in black. Do a little comparison, see what I think. I'll put the photos in right here so you can check it out for yourself. Let me know what you think, but hopefully after that I'll be able to make a final decision on which way I go with it. After looking over all the photos, I'm definitely sold on the black bar. I'm going to scuff that up, shoot some paint on it, and I think that's going to be the best look for this car. Well, there's no turning back now. I'm sure there's people yelling at their phones or computers or whatever you're watching this on. The polished stainless just doesn't do it for me. We're going to scuff this up with some 150, get some black paint on it. I think it'll look a lot better. This is really just too street rowdy for my taste. But if I decide to go back, they make new ones every day, so it's not the end of the world. Got the bar all scuffed up. I've got it hung up here. Got the first coat on it. I'm just using some of this stuff. It's VHT roll bar and chassis paint. I know, rattle can. Ugh. But I've used this stuff a bunch of times. It works pretty well. I've never used it on stainless, so I'm not sure how well it's going to adhere to that, but I figure it's worth a shot. It's Sunday night, all the part stores are closed, and I had this on hand, so I'll give it a few coats of this, see how it holds up. Worst case, I'll have to redo it, but I think the stuff will be fine. Got the drop bar all painted up here. I gave it a couple of heat cycles after painting it to help the finish harden up, and it seems pretty good now, so I think it'll hold up all right. The finish definitely came out as good, if not better, than what's on the car, so it should look just fine. We're going to get this thrown on here, get all the lights thrown on here, hopefully without scratching anything. And that's going to be the final look for this thing, at least for now. Got the bar on. I'm definitely happy with the way that looks. I think that's going to be a much better look than the stainless bar. I'm going to get the lights thrown on here and we'll take some final shots when it's all back together. Here's the somewhat finished product. I like it. I think this is definitely the look for the car. Stainless bar just didn't look right on here. It was too straight rowdy for my taste. I think the black bar just looks right. So here it is. I'm pretty happy with how this looks. I think it's a little more subtle than the stainless bar. It's one of those things that you can look at it and think, something looks a little different. It may take you a couple minutes of staring at it to figure out what it is. I kind of like that instead of it being real obvious with the stainless bar. So again, I'm pretty happy with this. I know there was some votes for the guide lights and a few different votes for other things, but this is what I'm going with for now. So if you guys haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. There's going to be some more videos coming up on this, along with the Roadster. Hopefully the next video on this will be me getting it running. I still need to order a few parts on it, but it's pretty close to getting there. So thanks again for watching, and see you on the next one.